Today is the 8th, right? Okay. The Year of Learning by Dr. Paul Koningsberg in memory of his brother, Dr. Sam Koningsberg, Shimon Reuven ben Labish, and Ed Goldberg's cousin, Nissen Haran, Nissen ben Fardosa. Paula and Bob Bromberg in memory of their dear friend, Julian Smith, Yehuda ben Yisrael. In memory of Malcolm Mann and former members of her family murdered in the Holocaust, Harav Tzvi Hirsch ben Shlomo Yaakov, Sarah bet Ephraim, Yisrael David ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Ephraim ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Adia bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Miriam bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Pesel bat Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shalom ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shlomo Yaakov ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, Shmuel ben Harav Tzvi Hirsch, many friends of Dr. Marvin Blush, Moshe Shalom ben Yitzchak Halevi, friends of Toby Peres, Saratova bat Yisrael Dov, friends of Malka Levi, Malka bat Yosef, friends of Avi Gitler, Avrameya ben Shimon, and Martha Gitler, Charna bas Yeshaya. Shall assure her children and grandchildren, in memory of her uncle, founding member of BRS, Dr. Israel Brook, Yisrael ben Arav Akiva. Marsha Federbush and family, in memory of her husband, Dr. Oriel Paul Federbush, Oriel Pinchas ben Rav Shimon, friends of Joe Wolf, Yosef ben Chaim, Sharon and Fred Lisker, their family and many friends, in memory of her dear mom, Harriet Friedman, Edelbas Yaakov. Leslie and Gail Kaplan, in memory of their parents, Harry and Marjorie Siddell, and Irving and Pearl Kaplan. A month of learning, sponsored by Cheryl Scher, in honor of those who attended and participated in her first series of epistemology of tefillah classes. A week of learning by David and Mendel Cheslow, in memory of his father, Moshe ben Reuven Mordechai, and by Susan and Ron Podolsky, in memory of her father, Simcha Bunam ben Yeshua. And then we have a day of learning by Florence Kirshner, in memory of her husband, Moshe ben Baruch. May the Shamas have an aliyah, crank or afiyah, vet the Yeshua Shem Atzliah, and l'chol b'nei Yisrael a good gebencht yar. All right, so you remember we were talking in the Gemara about the 13 locations where the bowing took place against the various gates. Okay, and that was the discussion in the Gemara. Okay, and then we went from there on Yud Zayin Amud Beis to discuss the location of the tables. Some of the tables were made of marble, some were not, and we saw some were used for the cutting up of the offerings, some were used for simply putting the equipment on the table, and other tables were used for the showbread. Okay, and so towards the end of Yud Zayin Amud Beis is where we're going to pick up today. If you look 4 lines up from the bottom. Okay, I think that's a good place. Right. So the Gemara wants to clarify, okay, based on the discussion, earlier discussion, okay, as to where the lechem apanim was, whether it was on one table, the table that was put in the Mishkan by Moshe, or on multiple tables. Okay, and that was the argument. Okay, so we're continuing, and we see there the following. Okay, all right. Okay, Tani. Okay, it was taught in a Braita. Okay, says the text. Mizrachu Ma'arav, saying that the tables were arranged east to west. Hayu netunim divrei Rebbe. That was the view that was presented by Rebbe. Okay? Rabbi Eliezer Bey Rabbi Shimon, okay, son of Rabbi Shimon, Rabbi Eliezer, claimed a different direction, right? Omer Tzafon v'Darom hayu netunim, that they were arranged from north to south. Okay? Now that doesn't clarify exactly which table or tables the Lechem Hapanim was put on. But the Gemara now comments, Aman de Amar Mizrach Ma'arav Necha, the one who said that the tables were from east to west, that seems appropriate, right? Why? Right? Kulhan Ru'uyin L'Sherut, because all of those were fit, right, for the service. Art Scroll on 17b3, note 26, I think, right? Goes into some detail. Okay, in other words, the size and the how to fit the tables into the area, things like that. Okay, Man de Amar Tzafon v'Darom, the one who says that the tables were from north to south, Nimtza Shulchan b'Darom. The problem there is then you may have a table that is southernmost, and that table is in a location which indicates we have a problem. Why? Says the Gemara, if we go over now to today's daf, Yud Chet Amud Aleph, Umenorah B'Tzafon. And then the menorah would be in the north. Okay? And on 18A1, if you have Art Scroll, you see a drawing that's there. Personally, I would have liked to have seen the drawing as done in the Koran, so that it was sort of flipped a little bit more to the right. So you would have had the Kodesh Kadoshim up top and the other area underneath it. Okay, but the advantage of this current drawing, okay, is to show us ideally, okay, where it is the table and the menorah are opposite each other, and the Mizbeach, the golden altar, is further away, not exactly between the two of them, but further down, closer to the opening of the Heichal. Okay, so whether we look at it in this diagram or we flip it like Koren did and have the Kodesh Kadoshim towards the top, it's still the same significance in terms of seeing where the table and menorah are balanced, so to speak, versus where the Mizbeach HaZahav is. Okay?
So, Rabbi, sorry, I missed something. I thought there were 10 tables. The 10 tables were made, but only one at a time were put in?
Well, that's what we got to see, right? That's a good point, Bob. Okay?
Okay.
So the Braita now continues in our case. Vahatani ha-shulchan. But it says the table was placed. So that would seem to imply that there was only one table in the Heichal, right? And not 10. Okay? Hayanatun mechatzi habayit ulifnim. That one table, excuse me, was placed approximately halfway down or slightly more than halfway in the Heichal, okay, towards the inside, okay, and it was a certain distance from the wall, right? Mashuch min hakotel, shtei amot umechza klape hatzafon, and that it from the wall it was 2.5 amos from the northern wall. Okay. Now, remember that space between the wall, okay, and the table was for the Kohanim to be able to manipulate, putting in, moving, etc., the showbread. Okay. Umenorah kenegdo b'darom. And this Braita tells us that the menorah was opposite the Shulchan in the south. Okay, so if we look at the art scroll diagram, that gives us a little directional in the bottom. Okay, you can see how they have it displayed. All right. Mizbeach hazahav haya natun be'emtza habayit. That the golden altar was put in the middle. So what does it mean the middle? Since that area of the Heichal was 20 amos, it had to be 40 amos, I'm sorry, since the whole facility was 60, okay, and therefore to be halfway down, it had to be 20 amos in from the front. Okay, and therefore the Gemara continues, Cholek et habayit mechetzio ulifnim, right? That therefore divided up the Heichal area, okay, in, so to speak, in half, right, from the inside. Mashuch kima klape tzafon chutz. So it was sort of drawn out somewhat towards the front, right, as we see towards the opening. Okay, tzafon chutz. V'kulhon hayanatun mishlish habayit v'lefnim. And all of them, says the Gemara, was actually located in only, let's say, 2/3 of the space designated for the entire area, combining the Heichal and the Kodesh Kadoshim. Okay. Now, another piece with a new Braita. Okay. Eser menorot asa Shlomo. Sorry, that the Shlomo made 10 menorahs for the temple. Okay, citing the pasuk, Vayaset menorat hazahav eser kemishpato vayitain behechal Hashem miyamin v'chamisha miyamin v'chamisha mismol. Okay, citing the pasuk, and he made 10 golden menorahs according to their specifications, put them in the sanctuary, 5 to the right and 5 to the left. Ein tema chamesh b'tzafon v'chamesh b'darom. Okay, really should not say, says the Gemara, that we put that 5 were put in the south, in the north, and 5 were put in the south. V'halo ein menorah kshera ela b'darom. But rather, it's not, isn't it a situation where the validity of the menorah depends on its being put only in the south? Shenama, again, as we cite a pasuk clearly, et menorah nochach hashulchan al yerech hamishkan teimana, that the menorah would be opposite the table in the, let's say, by the side, okay, I'll use that term for the moment, okay, south side of the tabernacle. Ma Talmud Lomar. So therefore, what does it mean when the Braita tells us chamesh miyamin v'chamesh mismol? Okay, what does that imply? 5 on the right and 5 on the left. Ela chamesh miyamin menorato shel Moshe v'chamesh mismola. But rather 5 from the right of Moshe's menorah and 5 from the left. Afal pichen lo hayam mav'ir ela shel Moshe bilvad, except that they only really lit the one of Moshe. Okay, that seems to be the implication of the Braita. Right. Now, Shenemar, why? Because we have a pasuk again that we'll cite, Umenorat hazahav v'neroteha leva'er ba'erev ba'erev. Okay, implying again that was the case. that, okay. So he's saying that it was Menorat Hazahav, the one that tells us that that seemed to light only that one. Okay, Rabbi Yosef disagrees, and he tells us as follows. Rabbi Yosef b'Rabbi Yehuda, Omer says, Al Kulan Hayom Mav'ir, that they lit all of these menorahs. Okay, Shnei Amar, why? Because he cites a pasuk, Ve'et menorot v'nerotehem, leva'aram kemishpat, lefnei hadavir zahav sagur. Okay? So again, his pasuk tells us something different, namely that the menorahs and their lamps were kindled as required by the partition, okay, implying that they were all kindled. Now, the next verse, however, goes on.
Lost the voice.
I think we froze.
Yeah. Well, only the rabbi. Everyone else is still on.
He's gone.
I don't know. Just... Did someone call the rabbi yet? Anyone call?
He knows.
He knows. Okay.
He's had trouble with his video before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The problem is that he's in the executive, and his office is in the front of the apartment, far from the modem, and the Wi-Fi drops. And that's the bottom line. It's a problem function.
Okay.
Yeah. He's got concrete walls and rebar walls, and it doesn't let the Wi-Fi through.
Okay. Well, hang in there.
Yep. I know I've had to hardwire and I've had to put an extra modem in just to go and deal with the issues.
Did they work? Did the extenders work? You put in an extender?
Not an extender. I put in Ethernet wired router.
A hard wire. Okay.
It's the only way to do it, really. Or else I could do mesh, but even that'd be weak.
Mm-hmm. But those plug-in extenders don't work, huh?
Well, they do work, but they slow your connection by 50%.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's no bargain. What speed do you get now? You get 200, over 200?
Never.
See, I get over 200 when I'm next to the modem, near the modem.
Yeah.
230.
Right.
But when I go into the back room, I get 50, 60.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Drops off quite a bit.
These buildings were not built for Wi-Fi.
Hmm.
Oh, he's back.
Yeah.
Back? Yeah, I see Karen Green is back.
Because Karen is connecting to audio.
Okay.
Not there yet. You're muted, Reb.
Can't hear you, Rabbi.
Okay, now?
Yes,
Yes.
okay.
Okay, something happened. I suddenly lost my internet. All right, I'll see. Anyway, I'm going to pick up. So the difference in the text there was that some texts have Shel Shlomo, some have Shel Moshe. Okay? Tani Rav Yehuda b'Shem Asi, he says, Hayash Shlomo notel elef kikarei zahav. That Shlomo would take 1,000 kikarim was a coin, right? A kikars of gold. Umachnisam lakur umotzian. He would put them into a crucible, heat them up, of course, and then take them out. Ad shehu ma'amidan al echad, until he reduced it, okay, to a single kikar al echad, the kayem ma'shene'amar, to satisfy what was said in the text. Kikar zahav tahor asa'ata v'gomer. Okay, again, that the menorah was made of pure gold. Now, an opposite Braita. Tanya, says the Braita. Amar Rabbi Yossi b'Rabbi Yehuda, he says, Maaseh b'menorat zahav, she'asa Moshe b'midbar, v'ayta yetera dinar zahav. That there was an incident, says this Braita, where the Moshe's menorah was made, but in the desert, okay, but it was more than the weight was more than one, let's say dinar, one more than what was prescribed, right? So what happened? Bechnisuha lekor shmonim pa'am, and he put it into the crucible 80 times, v'lo chasera klum, and it did not lose anything. It did not decrease at all. V'yeot, says the Gemara, that's correct, okay? However, it's possible. Ad delo yakum beriria have chaser sagin, okay? Until it reached its appropriate level of purity, okay? Maybe that's the reason that it did not lose anything. Mindu chayem al berere lo chasal klum. Okay, once, however, it reached its appropriate level of purity, okay, it did not lose anything. Okay, let's go on to the new halacha. Okay, we're now, since we were dealing with these items of 13s, right? 13 bowings, 13 tables. Now we're going to get to the 13 collection boxes, collection chests, right? Halacha daled matnitin shlosha asar shofarot hayu b'mikdash. That there were 13, let's call them collection shofars. They were chests in the shape of a shofar. Ukatuv alehen, and it was written about them the following: Tekalin chadatin, one was marked new shekels. Tekalin atikin, another was marked old shekels. Kinin, another was marked for the pairs of birds. Okay, Vigozle ola, another was marked then for young birds. Eitzim for wood. Livona for frankincense. Zahav lekaporet, another was marked for gold. And there's a difference of explanation. According to some, like Rashi, it was gold for the use of making the utensils. According to other explanations, this was gold in the shape of basins or bowls that could be easily melted down and used as covers for the ark, okay, for the inside, okay? Shisha l'nedava. And then there were also 6 of these shofar chests for free will offerings, voluntary offerings.
Shkalin chadatim, the new shkalim, shebechol shana v'shana. Those were the ones that were due to be paid each and every year. Va'atikim, and the old ones, mi shelo hevi eshtakal, shokel l'shana haba'ah, the one who did not pay their shekel from the previous year, right, would have to do it for the coming year. Kinin, for the, we said that was the birds, pairs of birds. Hein turim, those were going to be for turtle doves. Vigozle ola, and the young birds, hein b'nei yonah, they were going to be for the pigeons. Okay. So what happens? Says the Gemara, kulan olot divrei Rebbe Yehuda. In the view of Rebbe Yehuda, they were all olos, burnt offerings. The Chachamim Omrim, the sages, however, disagreed. Kinin echad, chatat, ve'echad olah. In regards to the bird offerings, one was for a burnt offering, but the other was for a chatat. Now, going on, gozle olah, kulan olot. Okay, the young birds, right, that were used, right, they were all burnt offerings. Haomer, why? Because we have a pasuk, hare alai eitzim. What about the fact that somebody might say a vow, and they'll say, I will take a vow to bring wood. Well, lo yifchot mishnei gezirin, says the Gemara, that one should not bring less when they make such a vow than 2 logs or 2 blocks of wood. Levona, incense, frankincense, lo yifchot mikometz, that they cannot bring less than the amount that's used for the kometz, for the mincha offering. Zahav, right? Regarding the gold, lo yifchot medinar zahav, that they should not bring anything less than a whole dinar's worth. Shishal and Nidava, as far as the 6th for free will offerings, Nidava mahayu osimba. What did they do with that money, right? From that situation, right? Lokhin ba'olot, they would purchase, says the Gemara, other burnt offerings. Now, what was the status of a burnt offering? Gemara tells us, habasar l'Hashem va'orot l'kohanim. The meat went to Hashem, but the hides went to the Kohanim. Okay, and how do we know this? Ze midrash darash Yehoyada Kohen Gadol. This was based on a drash, a midrash, right? An explanation, citing the pasuk, Asham hu Ashom Asham Lashem. So it's the double language there. How do you say that we have this double language that implies that the entire item should go to Hashem, both the meat and the hides? On the other hand, we have another pasuk, okay, that tells us the opposite, that says that the Kohanim should get a portion. Zeh haklal. This is the drasha as he went on. This is the principle. Kol shehu ba mishum chatat umishum ashma. Anything that comes both as a chatas offering and for guilt offering, yilaket bahen olot, will be gathered up as burnt offerings. Habasar l'Hashem va'arot l'kohanim. The meat goes to heaven, to Hashem, and the hides to the Kohanim. Nimtz'u shnei ktuvim kayamin. And in this way, we can say that we have found to satisfy 2 different psukim. Okay, Asham l'Hashem, va'asham l'kohen. One to Hashem, guilt offering, the other to the Kohen. Va'omer, all right, as we say in another pasuk, kesef asham, v'kesef chatat, lo yuva beit Hashem, l'kohanim yihiyu. So here's the other pasuk, okay? that seems to imply that it should be belonging to the Kohanim. And again, notice it said one is Kesef, one is Hasham, one is Chatat, and therefore using the second pasuk to explain the Ashom Asham, the double use there, we can therefore justify that the meat went to Hashem and the hides went to the Kohanim. Gemara, let's continue. Now, however, we've got a new bright. The new bright is going to tell us as follows, right? Amar Rabbi Yehuda, Lo haya shofar shel kinim b'Yerushalayim mipnei hata'arovo. According to Rabbi Yehuda, the shofar chest for the pairs of animals, there was no such chest in the Azara, in the Yerushalayim area. Why? Because they were concerned about mixtures. Now, what kind of mixture we're going to see? Namely, says the Gemara, Shema Tamut Echat, perhaps one of the women that might have to have paid, into the kinim, right? Remember, kinim were due for a woman that gave birth or a woman who was a zava, so lest the woman had died, right? V'nimtza'u demei chataot mitot me'uravot bahem. And we would therefore find that money that would have come as chatat for her death, as kapara, as atonement for her death, that would be mixed in with other money, in that chest, and that would be inappropriate. Vahatanya, Gemara says, challenging. But what about the following bright? Ha'isha she'amra harei alai ken, the woman who takes a vow saying that I will bring a bird pair, right? Miviyad demei ken v'nat nuka b'shofar. She can bring not the amount of money for the bird pair and deposit it in the shofar chest, right? And then what happens? Let's go on. V'ochelet b'kadoshim. And then, assuming the fact that the Kohanim take that money and proceed directly, she should be able then to eat kodshim that very night. Why? Because, says the Gemara, ve'eina chosheshet shema nit'atzel bahen. She does not have to be concerned that the Kohanim would be lazy, all right? Ve'ein hakohen choshesh shema demei chataot mitot muravot bahen. Nor do the Kohanim have to be concerned that perhaps money from a woman who died, perhaps as a result of childbirth, right, during that, that would be chatat money and not be appropriate for olot, and mixed in. Now, says the Gemara, ki ka'amrinan b'chataot shemetu ba'aleihen vadai. No, when the Gemara Braita told us that we're dealing with a situation of chatas money, what are we talking about? Those cases of chatas where we knew for sure that the owner had passed away. So the Gemara clarifies, ve'i amrinan, and if you might want to say, nevror dalet zuze, v'nishtei b'nahara, let's take 4 zuz, which was basically the value of one pair of birds, and just throw those coins into the river, right? Ve'idach l'shtare, and then the rest of the money in that shofar chest of kinim should be permitted. Ha'amrinan, but we say ba'alma in general, Rabbi Yehuda lit le breira, that Rabbi Yehuda held that way because he never accepted the concept of retroaction decisions. All right. We pick up now with another piece in the Gemara, as follows. Rabbi Yosef be Rabbi Bun, or Biba, Amar says as follows. Ba bar memo by. So he asked Rabbi Yosef basically, asks a question. Ray said that Rabbi Ba Bar Mero asked the following shaila and says, Hare alai eitz. If someone takes the vow to bring wood, mevi gizar echad. Is it possible for them to bring only one block or only one log? Amar Rabbi Lezer says, Matnita Amra came. Our text, our Mishnah, says so, and he's going to point that out. Shezeh korban b'fnei atzmo, v'zeh korban b'fnei atzmo. That each block or log of wood is its own mitzvah. Kahai d'tnanin tuma, as it was taught elsewhere. Shnayim biyadam shnei gizrei etzim. If you have two kohanim, and in their hands, each kohen, is carrying one block of wood, right? What's the situation? Korban, it says, the pasuk, implying an offering or a single offering. The rabot et ha'etzim, that comes to include wood that's brought for the altar. Rabbi Yoshua ben Levi, is now going to cite a question about the size of these blocks or logs of wood. Ovian, he says their thickness, amma ba'amah socheket, that it is one amma by another amma, expanded amount. Va'arkan ba'amah geduma, and their length is let's call it a shortened amma. So remember, we had previously talked about 6 tfachim amma versus a 5 tfachim amma. I'm suggesting maybe, no proof, but I'm suggesting maybe that's what might be referred to here. Rabbi Honi, b'shem Rabbi Ami, suggests another way of determining the size of the block or the size of the log. He says, kimin turtane. He says it's like a thick stick. Now, what we're referring to here is the kind of stick that they would put a turtani, a measure, scales on. So they would have a stick sort of, and then hang the scales down from that. Amar Reb Shmuel bar Rav Yitzchak, he says, Lefi shelo hayam makom hama'aracha ela amma alama. That's because the top of the wood pile, let's call it for the moment, was only one amma by one amma. Lefichach lo hayabo ela amma keduma. And therefore, that's why they had to use for the length the shortened amma. Now, Vatani came, and we have a Braita that teaches as follows: Amma hayesod, that let's call it the height of the foundation around the Mizbeach, right? And if you look on 18b3, note 26, all right, it's the base, there. Corin had a color picture, by the way, of the same thing, but at a different angle, all right? So he says, Amma hayesod. Then, Amma sovev, okay, the sovev, okay, was also Amma. That was the right ledge that went around. Karkuv, the rim, okay, that also, okay, was Amma. Va'ama karanot, or the karnot, the horns, okay. Now, according to the art scroll diagram, the rim was on the top, okay. According to the Koran, it was lower down, okay. Va'ama ma'aracha, and the pile of wood, okay, that would go on top, okay, was one amma. Now we go on to a new topic. Levona, we said the incense, frankincense, lo yifchot mikometz, should not be less than the amount that's added to a kometz, the, let's call it a palm full of grain used for the mincha offering. Ne'emar kan askara, v'ne'emar lahalan askara. Okay. On the one hand, okay, we see a reference to the word memorial portion, and another we see also, okay, another use of the same term. Ma askara ha'amur lahalan melo kometz, the same way that that term askara, memorial portion, refers to the palmful, right? Af askara ha'amur kan melo kometz. So here too, that's why we apply the gzera shava of the same term and say and use the fact that it also must be equivalent to a total palmful. Okay, so Gemara continues. Ma askara ha'amura lahalan shnei kmutzim. But maybe, says the Gemara, we're talking about a askara, okay, that is memorial, that is equal to two palmfuls. Af askara ha'amura kan shnei kumtzi. That maybe here too, we're talking about two palmfuls. Amar Rabbi Ila, says Rabbi Ila, klum lamdu lekometz, ela mimanchat choter. Okay, was it not that we learned about the measurement, I'm going to say, of the palmful, were it not for the fact that we learned it from the mincha associated with a sin offering. Malahalan kometz hachaser pasul, since we learned there that if the palmful, we could even call it fistful, okay, was lacking, then the offering was not valid. Afkan kometz hachaser pasul. So likewise here too, if the amount of frankincense that would be mixed with this grain, okay, was less than a palmful or fistful, okay, it would be invalid. Okay, new statement. Amar Rabbi Yossi, is Rabbi Yossi. Milta de Rabbi Ila. So Rabbi Yossi is telling us this thing, in other words, this statement that was made by Rabbi Ila, Amra, that he said, tells us something else also. Hamitnadev livona meviah bekomtso shel kohen gadol. Now, we have a problem with the language in a moment, the text. He's saying, Rabbi Yossi, that when one donates this amount of frankincense, of incense, he should bring it to the equivalent size of a fistful or palmful of Kohen Gadol. Now, we don't know for sure, according to one explanation. It means the size of the hand of the Kohen Gadol. Others want to say, no, it's the size of a Kohen Gadol, the size of a Kohen who has a large hand. Okay? Now, either way, we're going to have a problem. Not everybody's hand is the same size. And therefore, Rabbi Chizkiah, the same Rabbi Yirmiyah, va'afilu b'kometz haba'alim, he says, even if it's, so to speak, only the size of a fistful or palmful of the owner. So even if his hand is not the same size as the Kohen Gadol, or a large hand-fisted, large-handed Kohen, it's still acceptable. Okay, we move on now to another example. The gold. Remember we said those were basins, and there was a discussion as to what the purpose of that gold was going to be used for. Different Rashi and the art scroll tended to agree that it was for the making of the utensils. Koren and other Meforshim disagreed and said it was for what I'll call for the moment wallpaper. Okay, almost. Right? So what happens? Zahav lo yivchot v'chulei. Amar Rabbi Elazar. So Rabbi Elazar is saying here in this case, V'hu shehizkir tzura. Okay, we're mentioning this, he says, because it has a form. What does it mean, a form? In other words, a form is that it has some sort of emblem on it that implies it's a coin. So therefore, we know for sure it's a gold, valid gold coin. Aval im lo hizkir tzura. But if he is not bringing a valid gold coin, mevi afilu tsinora. Okay, in that case, he may bring a tsinura. Now, there's a difference of translation. Art Scroll wants to tell us that it was a utensil in the shape of a fork. Okay, so it would have, like a used for, let's say, for barbecuing, two-pronged fork. Koren disagrees and wants to say it was more like a hook, okay? That it was still something that could be used to turn the meat over, okay, in that way. Okay. Now, we come back, Shisha Nidava. What about those 6 chests that were for the voluntary offering, right? Rav Amar, according to Rav, others say Chizkiah Amar, the following. Keneged Shisha Bate Avot. Why do we have 6? Because they reflect the 6 paternal houses of the Kohanim. Okay? A different view. Bar Ptaya Amar, Keneged Shesh Behemot. They were designated because of the 6 animals that could be brought as an olah. Par, right, number 1. Okay, so that would be a bull, right? For Egel, number 2 would be a calf. Sa'ir, number 3 would be a goat. Ayil, number 4 would be a ram. Gedi, number 5, a kid. Utle, 6, a lamb. Shmuel Amar, so Shmuel, Keneged Shisha Korbanot. They were designated for 6 offerings. He disagreed. All right. What were these offerings? In parentheses, we see K'nei Zavin, K'nei Zavot, K'nei Yoledot. Right? The bird pairs for male Zavin, the bird pairs for female Zavot, and the bird pairs for women who gave birth. Okay, those are 3 chataot. Okay, offerings that were chataos for guilt offerings. Ashamot, another one, and menachot. Right, and menachot. Va'asiri ta'efa, and they were all or the 10th of an ephah of the Kohen Gadol. Now, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, says Rabbi Yochanan, Al Yadei Shehanedava Miroba, since the amount of money that would be in those voluntary offering shofar chests was so great, Rivu la shofarot harbe. Okay, that's why he said they needed to have multiple collection shofar chests for that purpose. Ktiv, right? Because we see it's written as follows in the pasuk, right? Chalotam heviu lefnei hamelech Yehoyada. Okay, namely, right, when it was finished, namely that again was when Josiah required the renovations for the temple, they were brought before him, okay, and Yehoyada. Now, Rabbi Shimon ben Nachman, Bar Nachman says, B'Shem Rabbi Yonatan, in the name of Rabbi Yonatan, the following, Shtei Nedavot Asa. There were two chests for two kinds of donations, and we'll be finishing up in a moment. Tane, okay, as taught in the following Braita, right? Namely, the Bei Rabbi Yishmael says, according to the view of Rabbi Yishmael, the Academy of Rabbi Yishmael, Nidava Echat, there was only one, a single Nidava chest. Why? Based on the pasuk. Vayomer Hamelech v'yasu aron echad v'yitnehu behechal beit Hashem. Okay, that was the king made an order to make a single chest, right? And they would put it into the sanctuary. And what happened? Vayikov chor b'dalato. And Yehoyada was expected to put a hole in that chest, okay, in the lid for putting the deposits. Vahakti, says the Gemara, but wasn't it written also, Vayomer Hamelech v'yasu aron echad vayitnehu b'sha'ar beit Hashem chutza, that also it's written that the king made an order and that they put a chest, excuse me, outside the gate of the temple. Why outside? Amar Rav Huna mepnei hatmeim. That was to satisfy and fulfill the obligation for people that were tamei. Now, Rav Huna b'shem Rabbi Yosef says another, okay, in statement to try to define and clarify, right? Ach lo ya'aseh beit Hashem sfot kesev mizamrot v'gomer. He says his point is, right, that the temple was not made for silver ornaments and basins, etc., etc. Okay, which would seem to imply, okay, that therefore the one outside had a different purpose, not for Tmeim, but for other collections, and the one inside, so that would go along with the suggestion that there were only two Nidavat chests.
It was on wheels.
What?
Actually, it was on wheels.
It's on wheels? Okay. All right. Okay. So we'll stop there. We'll pick up tomorrow on Yud Tet, and I'm trying to start making some arrangements for